Yet, on the flip side, already 4 slots in the cabinet given to Odinga, 20 now for the principal secretaries. And in fact, he's encouraging that that should happen as soon as possible. Do you believe principal secretaries should go home and Raila's men to come on board?
Okay, now I was contributing on what next for Gen Zs, and what I said is this: what they needed to know, what they needed to do is know when to exit the stage, because then at that time we should have then said the Gen Zs have made a point, and that point, if they came back 6 months down the road, 5 months down the road, 1 year down the road, and say our issues have not been resolved, then someone would have listened to them and said these young kids are making a point. But the problem is that, yes, the first time they came to the streets, they actually made a point. And even me, I believed in that point. And I said, yes, they've said, we don't want corruption, we don't want wastage, we don't want all these trips. Yes, I did. And I will continue saying I did, and I voted yes. But please allow me, as we have agreed. Let me finish, then yeah, write your notes, then you can come and comment. But the problem is that after they raised their issues, people took over. Political, what do I want to call them? People who were interested in their political interests took over and infiltrated their demonstrations. And what we see today is not the Gen Z issues that came out. What we see today are people who are hungry for power, who need to take up or who need to overthrow government. And that is the reason why then they have allowed these people now have allowed another part of need to come in and say, let's now organize a whole government together. There's nothing wrong with Baba, as we call him, saying, I want 20 slots, I want 15 slots. By the way, nobody has said there are 20 slots of PSS. All we know is that the PSS who we have in office, are they competent enough? The answer is, the president himself once said, there are people who are in my government who I even know more information than they do. That he has said himself. We ourselves, as we oversight, there are people whom we have seen, even up to now, 3 years, 2.5 years down the road, are still not competent enough to manage the affairs of their institutions. And what I would say for me is, those people who are incompetent, who are unable to manage their affairs, this is about public affairs, it's not about private. Then they need to ease the way so that those who are able and those who can manage can come in. There is nothing wrong with a reshuffle to make sure that you bring in the breed of people who can manage the affairs of this country, because it's about my child going to school, it's about me getting health care, it's about me getting the social services that I need to get from government. Right. And therefore, whether there be 20, whether there be 100, whether there be whatever number, for as long as the people who come to serve will be Kenyans of high standing, who will be able to give us the value for the money that we put on the table. That is the value that we are looking for. I would like to go to my constituency and promise the people of Aldai constituency, for example, that I'm going to give them electricity. And the PS responsible for energy will make sure that the people of Aldai have gotten their electricity, because he has put it in the budget, he has transferred the money, and I want to make sure that the PS responsible for National Treasury has made sure that the money required by the PS Energy has been given to him for my people in Aldai to be able to get electricity. That is what is very critical here. It is not about people, it is not about these are William Ruto's people, these are Raila Odinga's people, these are whose people. It is about the services to the people. And that is what Gen Zs, in my view, at the time they started this was about. But today, as we speak, is just about people who want to fight for power. And I really worry for and pity Kasmuel, because he actually is a good kid. He is a good person, and he knows how to prosecute his matter. But he's being used. I wish he sat there today, right now. If you exited the stage at the time you were required, today it would not have been Eric who is seated on the cabinet. It would have been you. I am just giving you an example. Yes. I'm giving you an example. And you can actually sit in a position. But I did not want. I'm not just saying cabinet. I'm saying you can sit in a position where you can actually carry the knowledge that you have to help influence and shape
Kasmal,
this country.
I'll be giving you time to respond.
All I'm saying.
Kasmal, I'll be giving you time to respond to that.
That's what you're trying to say. You will be getting an opportunity to help shape this country, because we need you to shape the country. We need your knowledge.
Kennedy.
all we
The next axe is now going to fall on the principal secretaries. 52 of them, less than 2 years since they took over office. The same president appointed them, whether they're incompetent or competent. I mean, he should have perhaps perused their CVs well to figure out whether they qualify to be in those dockets. That aside, a conversation for another day. The axe will now fall on the 52 principal secretaries. It's believed Raila Odinga will take home about 20. Is this the lucrative positions that are being targeted, especially factoring in that they are the accounting officers of respective ministries?
One, you had the first question, which I wish to weigh my point on, as to Raila's place in the formation of a broad-based government, and also in the current rumor which you want us to discuss, because basically you want us to discuss a rumor of appointment of cabinet secretaries. The other day I told you I don't like discussing rumors, because personally when I see the president dissolves the cabinet, that's when I talk about it. And when he acts in nominating like that time, he acted in nominating 4 members who actually were of ODM, I talked about it. Now, Raila Odinga, the man, I have heard on this debate, as some persons tending to say that maybe Raila is exiting. Raila is there to stay. That is something also which you have to agree. Because he has not gone and he has not left. Many people will leave and he has always remained. The thing I want to say is that when we went to the 2022 elections, it was a competition, and the supporters of President William Ruto, like myself, together with the supporters of Raila Odinga, were almost on a balance, with only 200,000 votes as a margin. That one tells you Raila commands a support. In Kenya and in Africa, and in a political dispensation, people command support. And in commanding support, and that's why Nane failed. Nane did not fail because people were removed from vehicles, as he claims. It is because
But
in that
on major roads.
In that Nane, I also saw the roadblocks. I also saw them. And the roadblocks were even there in those are the earlier demonstrations. And they all succeeded. The thing is, Raila Odinga's support, once Raila had already talked to the president and said, fine, you are the president.
Which narrative do you believe, by the way? Was it Raila talking to the president, or the president talked to him? Which is which?
Both of them have spoken. Both of them have spoken. And you have heard what both of them have said. You have the latitude to choose who to believe. Personally, I know both leaders had a concession among themselves that now that these Gen Zs are driving an agenda which will have no end, because you talk about president must go, without a solution as to what is next. And the constitution is also very clear. While there are other avenues that can take control of the country, we are in an elective, constitutional, and democratic republican state. So, Raila Odinga and William Ruto are two leaders who are 200,000 vote gap. So when they come in and solve the status of the country, that is the way forward. That's the broad-based government. Now you ask me about the PSS. You ask me about the PSS, and you talk about their qualifications. All these permanent secretaries are qualified as per whatever you might use to qualify them. Vetting process takes place in Parliament. Our Parliament, if issues arise, like you see, they didn't pass one of the nominees for cabinet secretary. They gave reasons as to why they rejected that nomination. Our Parliament has talked about that. So let us give sanctity to institutions where that institution belongs. Let each person in this country respect the duty that they have to the law and to the people.
Well,
so in conclusion on that point, let us give President time to think as to whether, with the current situation, he can continue working with these PSS, and let us not preempt and with a lot of rumors which are not even helping the country move forward. Thank you.
By the way, just for the record, before the former top 4 ODM officials were appointed as cabinet secretaries or nominated, trusted sources had intimated to us, and it's exactly that happened. And so it's a matter of wait and see for the 20 that Kennedy and Diek terms as rumors. You know, Kasmuel, the argument by Kennedy about, the difference in votes was only 200,000. Why then do we need elections if at all number 1 and number 2 at the end of the day will serve in the same government?
That's part of what we need to disabuse our minds of, that we only have 2 possibilities in any particular election. That is a false dilemma. And part of what we need to rethink is that it is never, in a country of 55 million, you will not lie to me that it can only be a two-person race. And this is the thing that is always forced. Again, if you think about the number of people who abstained from the vote, is more than the people who participated in the vote. And we can substantively argue that these are the majority. So if you talk about, if we are here to talk about number 1 and number 2 in that sham election, because, and I say this as a person where you say number 1 and number 2, remember, Raila had also rejected the results of this election. So clearly we are talking about an election that was nothing but a sham. However, be it as it may, we're talking about depending on a legislative house that will sit down in less than 30 minutes and deploy a military to the streets. Then when they realize, when we as young people realize that when we go to run behind the military, we are not brutalized by the police. It happened for our next Mandamano, we would chant and then we would run to the army. And we realized the army was not as antagonistic. So we were like, please leave these army people on the street because these people are the ones that we actually like. Then the army was suddenly removed. Again, part of what we need to address is
so
we've had
prefer
people,
the army, not the police.
And this is not to mean that we prefer a military state. I don't want anybody to misunderstand or misquote.
While demonstrating.
No, while demonstrating on the street to maintain law and order, we will say unequivocally, bring us the military every single time. If Parliament can do us that favor, we did not, of course we opposed, we are not like, this is not a military state, but compared to the police force, remember this country does not have a police service. It only has a police service on paper. The other thing is, we are trusting this same legislative house that deployed the military maliciously before we realized, these people are just Kenyans like us who are oppressed the way we are. Anybody who is asking us to give the president time needs to understand that, remember CS Kindiki is the one who was overseeing these organs and the deployment of the police. He has come back to the same docket. We have not seen anybody get account for the people who died.
On the much anticipated shake-up for the PSS.
Yes, no, I'm not talking about PSS. Let me just talk about this broad-based government, because even the shake-up of the PSS is just an infusion, because we are talking about an inclusivity thing, right? The same people who came back to the dockets are the same people who bedeviled this country. Who is going to take account for the blood of those young men who were killed by the police? When we say that we have videos, we have these things, we are now subjected to the Evidence Act. But when people want to come here on telly and with their bravado and braggadocio about their legal experience, they suddenly want to cherry pick the parts of constitutions they are going to respect. Anybody who is telling us to give the president time wants us to sit down and let Adani take over our airport. They debunked it. Remember, when they started, they rejected it. But now, after we unearthed it, it became a thing. Anybody who's telling us to give this administration time is telling us to sell our forest for carbon credits, which is a thing that a lot of Kenyans do not understand. Anybody who's asking us to give this government time knows that this sham that is SHIF, which we will unearth, and they will deny until we prove that it is true, to be run as a single entity insurance company, we will not allow it. These things are the same things which we are talking about. So when you hear young people say Ruto must go, we are not talking about this from a tribal point. We are not talking about this, and I say this authoritatively. When you see me on the streets, I never once clamored for a position. I know some people, I've seen a person show up in the media, talk as though they are angling for a PS position, which I'm here to assure them that they will not get, however much they defend this government. We are here not asking for any positions. Well, I have stated, I've stated categorically, for this administration, I will not accept any work, whether it is in terms of expertise or whatever, because I do not believe in it systemically, I do not believe in it leadership-wise, and even the person who was rejected from the panel of cabinet ministers does not inspire any faith, because the most corrupt people were approved by that legislative house, which I continuously say that is one in bed with the executive that is headed by the outgoing president, also that sits unconstitutionally. I will not refrain from saying the point that this parliament should be dissolved ad perpetuum.
I'll come back to you.
Should be dissolved.
Yes.
Let's talk about the wise man. Tell him, go and release that on your Facebook page. But I'm winding up. In conclusion, yes, and you have not changed yours.
I'll be coming back to you.
Changing a mind shows that you have something.
It is true. But you you cannot change a mind that you do not have. You cannot be, those are some of the things. So in conclusion, what the Gen Zs have been doing. And I totally agree that there are certain people, and we will not allow them. We've seen a lot of these powerful political figures, because this is a Gen Z conversation. And I want to make it very clear that we are not ignorant of what is happening. We understand that there are enemies that are taking this as an opportunity to settle personal scores with the president. We do not accept, and we have seen them walk around and they are giving us information. All we are using them is for tools of information. We will not endorse these thieves. If you think you are a billionaire and suddenly you've shown up and you think you want to, we will not be swayed. And if you think you can use the young people to swindle or to settle your political scores, we will not accept it, because it's the same thing that we are saying. We are the same people who are being killed, but we are not being called to any table.
Let's now proceed to Honorable Kitani. You know, the trigger of the Gen Z revolution was high taxation through the Finance Bill of 2024. The CS then, Professor Njuguna Ndugu, who has now exited, in fact said that the plans for high taxes to achieve revenue and growth will not work. He added that, you know, it's high time that we don't depend on high taxation for debt repayment. Yes. But even as this conversation is there, to add salt to the injury, Kenya is now mulling on the plans to introduce toll fees on roads, major roads in fact. And the proposal is yet again eliciting a debate that, you know, these roads were constructed by our own money, because usually for such arrangements, it's when it's a, you know, a government and public, you know, partnership, let's say for the expressway, where with only 27 kilometers, you can pay up to 490 shillings. Now, can you imagine a situation where a Kenyan has to travel from South Coast all the way to Aldai, and they have to pay these tolls on every road? The former says himself says this high taxation, by the way, will not work for the country.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I listened to the CS, the outgoing CS for the National Treasury during his handover, and he has raised a couple of issues, which was really advised to the incoming CS. And I'm happy that the incoming CS was in the opposition benches who raised the issues that we do not want the finance bill. I myself, just like I've told Kasmuel, is that I voted for the finance bill because the issues that were in the finance bill that, in my view, felt that they were punitive had already been removed. And I agree with, and I want to agree with the CS. High taxation in any spectrum will never spur economic growth, because it becomes expensive for businesses to run in that country where there are high taxation. Remember, we compete between governments or between countries as to where an investor can invest and where they cannot invest. And therefore, you have to do a balance. And in this balance, many people, many analysts, I'm not an analyst, but many analysts say that you expand or broaden the tax base so that you get more people into the basket of taxing, and you are able to then allow everyone to contribute into the pot that will allow development to happen. One of the things that KRA, for example, need to do, because the issues that Gen Z brought about are things like wastage, things like corruption, and those kind of things. That is one thing that KRA, in my view, need to do, is go and look at their systems. How are we collecting these taxes? Can we broaden the tax base? Can we make sure that the person who is supposed to pay taxes pay? And I think just by changing their systems will help increase the amount of money that we collect that can then pay for these expenses that we have. I'll give you an example of a country like Dubai. A country like Dubai, you will not have, like by 20th or I don't know by when due tax returns, taxes are collected instantly. At the time you purchase, pesa ya serikali inaenda kwa serikali, pesa ya nani inaenda kwa nani. So it is about KRA perhaps sitting down again, listening to what Gen Z said, listening to Kenyans, so and saying, let us look at. That has been proposed by Kenya. I'm coming to toll fees. Let us look at how we do the taxes. On issues about things like toll fees that Kenya has proposed, in my view, remember these roads were constructed using Wanjiko's money or Kenyan money, which was borrowed. And that is the reason we are in this hole today, because we have borrowed billions to be able to do this road. To do a road, it comes to about 50 million shillings per kilometer. You've done these expansive roads. I'm looking at this road from Mombasa all the way to Malaba, which is a transit pathway. And these roads require maintenance. These roads require expansion. The number of vehicles, I tell you, when I'm going home, for example, there'll be traffic jam all the way from Nairobi all the way to Nakuru, because there are too many vehicles on the road. The roads need to be expanded. To be able to now do these expansions, we can't borrow anymore.
Well,
to be able to expand, we have to look for other ways in which we can do. And one of the ways is the tolling, so that we can now be able to use the money. Yes, I agree. Well, to use the money to expand these roads for us to be able to spend less money on the road as opposed to right now being on traffic. On traffic, you spend more money on that road.
Yeah, toll fees on major roads. You know, it will be expensive to now move. Remember the proposal on the motor vehicle tax, Kenyans opposed it.
I'm happy that
and now there's another proposal similar to just the, of course, taxing vehicles.
First, I'm very happy that now we are going on record, and I'm very grateful to Samuel for confirming that there's a group of individuals whom they are now using as tool for source of information. That is very true. And I'm also telling you, for the record, that those people, big boys whom you are using as tool of information, are using you as tool to run on the streets. Be careful when you run, because they are busy with their billions waiting for how fast you have run. Maybe to do something. But now, for the sake of what you have asked me, one, I want to say, we have a country to be run. And we know the legitimate sources of revenue of a government, whichever government in the world. And I also want to make a clarification as to elections. Whether we have two-horse races of one of two people in any developing democracy, or even developed democracies like the US, where we always want to copy from, there is always Republican versus Democrats. The others, like Whig and the rest, are usually minority. Like even in Kenya, we had other parties. There are people who also ran for that position. So there was a competition between the two. But now, for the sake of this toll, personally, I want to tell you that the government's policy on revenue is a subject of parliamentary discussion. The duty of the executive, whether as a minister or as the cabinet, is to propose such policies. They are taken to parliament, and I want to beg Kenyans, for the sake of the country we have, that let us give these institutions of parliament, legislature, of courts, as well as executive, to do the duties as pertaining to development of our country. And in conclusion of my side, let us give, there's no way we can say we can't give the president time. We are in a 5-year period of time which we can't change. Let the president have opportunity to deliver to this country based on the better plan. The better plan is a good idea which can take this country very further. But you see, you don't want to give me time because I'm discussing important point here as to the better plan. You want us to discuss rumors, but when I tell you how good the better plan is, you want to cut me short. This is a grand plan that is going to take the country further.
The toll fees proposal by Kenha. The other day, the road maintenance levy was increased by 7 shillings, despite the public rejecting that. And
despite the CS also.
The argument now is that these toll fees, according to Honorable Kitani, will help us settle the debt. Are we expand the roads and etc.?
Expand the roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they are rejected. This one will be subjected to the public.
It will not be subjected to any thought. And
is it proper now for our roads to have, these toll centers where now you'll be charged to move from one point to another?
What we have consistently said, and Kenya should not think that we will spare them. We will occupy those roads. We will occupy all of them, because these are the same roads which carry cabbages to Gikomba and Mudhurwa. When the young women are trading, and our mothers, first-class degree holders, selling fruit by the roadside. If you increase that, you lower their profit margin. If you're talking about a country that wants to expand, to inspire its people, we cannot have this kind of impunity, because when they talk about raising the fees, and especially even at the pump, it happens overnight. But when it is declared unconstitutional, we do not receive rebates or refunds, and these are not things which we are here to discuss. If Kenya wants to levy tolls, let it build new roads, because you cannot start charging tolls on things that these people pay taxes for. And I don't believe that I'm speaking out of turn.
Well,
because no. I don't believe I'm speaking out of turn because you cannot, they pay taxes, you paid taxes for the same roads. And now it will be very illogical for us to expect the same roads that you pay for them again.
Well,
we will not accept it.
Quickly, Honorable Kitani, in 15 seconds, but there is a Kenyan here saying, ask MP Aldai to stop politicizing about electricity. And yet our village in Aldai, we have never seen electricity since independence. He promised each and every year with zero implementation, Kapko village to be precise. Same as Kapsengere Health Hospital. As we end up in 15 seconds,
and
your final remarks on what next for the Gen Zs?
And that is why, like, for example, the people who I've talked of from Aldai, they need electricity. And that's why I'm saying we need people or PSS who will be there, CSS who will be there to listen to the cries that we carry to those offices. And we carry, because if we do not do this, then we can't get anywhere. Now, when we say we reject finance bill, for example, how are we going to finance this electricity that is going to go to these villages? When you bring out the issues of toll fees in Kenya and everywhere else, let's take a democratic country or a developed country like US, who we go to borrow money.
A lot of time.
No, yes, thank you. When we go to a country like that, they do all those things because of what? Because they are trying to raise revenues to maintain those roads, to expand those roads, and therefore you find us wanting to go to US, wanting to go where? Because they have developed infrastructure, and we go pay those taxes for them. We need to also look at, as Kenya, how can we make ourselves better?
Kennedy, in 15 seconds, your final remarks, kindly.
I want to tell you that taxation is not wrong. Tax laws are not bad. The only problem is mentality of the country and also delivery. Let us give opportunity to the government to deliver to us. When we talk about the roads being tolled, and we don't want those roads to be tolled because they lead us to important places. Remember, the roads are built by the government. Let us give the government opportunity to maintain the roads and also get more money to build the more roads, because you can't borrow to build the roads.
Thank you, Kennedy. Your final remarks, Casmuel. What next for Gen Z?
We will continue to agitate for good governance. And we will start with these small gains. We are coming now to occupy Bitok's office because he has refused to release IDs and passports. KICD for promoting rape culture in this Form 3 textbooks. We've seen that there are children who spent the night in a police cell being treated as victims, as prisoners instead of victims for undergoing FGM in Maua County. No. And then part of what it is that we are going to do is ensure that these police killings, because the police has shown us that they don't want to live amongst us as people, and they want to be used as tools of state violence. We will ensure we deal with police brutality. For what next on Gen Z, because this is the topic. This Nane was just but a beginning. Let's not look at it as though that Gen Zs are removed, they are isolated from the crowd. Gen Z is Generation Zote.
What
we are fighting for includes the rights of Mheshimiwa Ketian, includes the rights of Wakili here. All these things we have said, we shall ensure.
Thank you so much,
Casmuel
Makori, revolutionary artist, Kennedy Ondiek, political analyst, and as well Honorable Marian Kitani, Member of Parliament Aldai. It has been a conversation on what next for Gen Z. My name is Joel Chacha. Do enjoy the rest of your video.